So this is the sanitization process. We just put some sanitization powder in the fluid, and then we run it through the pump, and it cleans out the machine so that it's ready to brew. So now we are draining the sanitization fluid. Just have a three-way valve right there that connects to the bottom of the boiling kettle. So within the app, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a recipe for our beer. I've already preloaded this on. This is the beer we're brewing today. It's a Hefeweizen. It's got 4 different types of barley and 2 types of hops that we will add in at different points during the boil. Here are some of the specifications of the recipe, such as what temperature it will mash at, for how long it will mash for, and how long it will boil for. That all affects the taste of the beer. So now we're going to go ahead and start to brew this beer. So the first thing we want to do is connect to the brew bot, which is right here in front of me. So I will connect to it, and it can tell that it is not currently brewing anything, so it wants us to load a recipe, and I'm going to load that recipe I just showed you. And here you can see some of the details about the ingredients that are in it. Now we're going to go ahead and brew this. And it can tell that the first thing the user needs to do when they brew beer is add water, and so that is what this message is telling us to do. So Ben here is going to go ahead and add some water to the kettle. Now that that is done, I will press OK, and it's going to start heating up. And you can see here we have some temperature readings that give us, there are 2 sensors. There is one in the top, which is the mash tun here, and then one in the bottom, which is the boil kettle. And those 2 sensors heat up independent from, or they have independent readings from one another, and they heat up as it's boiled, and then we have a pumping system that will pump the water from the bottom, the hot water from the bottom to the top where it will be sparged. So as you can see here, as this is starting to heat up, we get an indication on the screen showing us that it is heating up in live time. And the way that this is actually working is it is querying every approximately 5 seconds to the Netduino requesting a status update. And this status update gives us information such as what step of the brew process that it's in, any information, any user interaction that this device might require, as well as the boil. So on the inside of the machine, to ensure even heating, we have a magnetic stir that creates a vortex and distributes the heat evenly. So we're about 15 minutes into the brew now, and we're at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. We're still trying to heat up a little bit more. We need to wait for this to get to about 170 degrees. And when it does, it will send me a notification. Now, one of the really cool things about this is that I can actually leave this room and walk up to my kitchen, and we can still continue to get live updates of the brew process. So I've now entered my kitchen, and I can still see that it's increasing. And I could go to my living room and watch TV, and my phone would make a noise when it reached the temperature, and I don't really have to think about it. So this app has really definitely simplified the brewing process for brewers, because no longer do they have to attend it very carefully for 3 hours. They can kind of, they only need to be there during the critical parts of the brew. Also designed in such a way that at any point during the device's brewing process, you can connect to it and begin exactly where you left off. So it's been going for about 10 minutes now, and we're up to 110. The strike temperature for this particular brew is, I believe, 155 degrees Fahrenheit, might be 160, and we'll come back in a little bit. And I am in my kitchen now, and this is still updating. So it's pretty convenient. strike temperature. It's at 167 degrees Fahrenheit. So, as you can see, it knows that it has reached the desired temperature, and now it wants us to open the valve, and that is so that the water can pump from the top to the bottom. So Benjamin just opened the valve, and so I'm going to press OK, and this activates the pump, which pumps the water from the bottom to the top. I don't know if you can see it here, but it is pumping. And it's going to do that for a few seconds. So you can see during the pumping process, which just finished, our mash tun temperature is much higher, and that's because it pumped the hot water from the bottom to the top. So at this point, we close the valve that we just opened, and this is where we add our grain to the mash. So we're going to take a moment to do that. So here's the inside of the machine. That is actually the sparge sprinkler that just got pulled up. We're adding the grain to the mash. This is about 5 pounds of grain. Stir it up a little bit. That is the temperature sensor off to the side there. And the float sensor to the right of that lets the water know, or lets the machine know when it is done pumping, according to the water level. So then we just slide the sprinkler back down, put the lid on, and we press OK on the app. So now the phone is telling us that we need to add sparge water, and this is the water that's going to circulate through the machine, and it will do this approximately. That the valve is back on, we're going to press OK. And we're going to add sparge water now. This is the water that passes through the grain as it brews. Ben's getting us that from over there. And we're going to put it right into this hole. So now that we've finished adding the water, I'm going to press OK. And at this point, it's going to continue to heat up that water in the bottom while simultaneously cooking the grain in the top. And that's going to take a couple minutes. So after adding the sparge water, we are now in the heating process of the mash step. This will go on for about 60 minutes. As you can see, the time left up there is 58 minutes. It's already been going for a moment. And you can see that we still have the temperature, and that is continuing to update. And we'll get back to this in 57 minutes.
So at the start of the sparging process, we have our sparging water in the bottom and our mash water in the top. And during the sparging process, it's going to go through 5 different phases where the water from the top drains into the bottom, and then it waits 2 minutes. And as soon as the 2 minutes is over, the pump is going to turn on and pump all the water to the top until it turns on this float sensor up here in the top, or it triggers the float sensor in the bottom, which means that the bottom kettle is empty. And it's going to do that 5 separate times to keep cycling the water between the 2 kettles. And as soon as that's done, we're going to move on to the boiling process. Okay, so now we're beginning the boiling process. So we're going to remove the temperature sensor and the mash tun from the machine. As soon as that's done, we're going to add our hops and begin boiling. So now that we're 28 minutes into the boiling process, the The recipe requires the user to add hops, so you can see here that the user is given a notification to add the hops, and once they're added, we can hit OK. Alright, so now we're going to add the hops. As soon as the boiling process starts, the microcontroller heats up the boiling kettle to boiling temperature, and as soon as it reaches that, the user is alerted on the Android app to add the next ingredient. And every ingredient that the user specifies in the recipe also comes with an add time variable, and as soon as it hits that add time during the boiling process, the user is prompted to add that ingredient. So the recipe is fully customizable, and you can add as many ingredients as you want.
So we finished our boil, and now we're going to add ice to cool the boil down. This affects the taste of the beer. It needs to cool quickly. That's good. And then we'll let it sit like this for about 10 minutes.
The app just notified us that the temperature has cooled down, so our wort is ready to be put into the fermentation jug. So we're about to drain all of the wort into 2 fermentation jugs. So we've finally put the beer into the fermentation jugs. We've got the airlocks on top with sanitized water, and as the yeast eats the sugar, it will produce carbon dioxide, which will get released through the airlocks. And in about 2 weeks, we're going to have fermented beer, which will then be put into bottles so it can carbonate.